Okay, so it's our day 38, I think, 38, 39, I think, of solving data structure problems. And yesterday we have solved three problems, which was course schedule problem and surround region problem. Okay, I think we have solved two problems only yesterday. So today we will solve these remaining problems. We will target. I think we can target these two problems today. First one is course schedule two, and second one is graph value tree. So yesterday in course schedule one, we have implemented uh, topological sorting using Khan's algorithm. Okay. So today we will solve course schedule 2. Okay. So till now we have solved 83 problems. We haven't solved a problem from means these three easy problems and also one easy problem in this part, two pointers part. So we can also count these four problems. So in total we have solved 87 problems. Okay. So let's start with the course schedule 2. Okay, we have already opened it. So the problem says there are a total of num courses you have to take, labeled from 0 to n minus 1. So we have, for example, num courses means we have, suppose num courses is 3. So in case we have courses 0, 1, 2, starting from 0 based indexing. So you are given you are given an prerequisites where prerequisite I equals to ai bi indicate that you must take a course b1 first if you want to take the course a1. Okay, so we have array prerequisite. So this means for taking a1 course we must take a b1 course before taking course ai. We must take course bi. Okay. For example, 0 1 represents before taking course 0 we have to take the course 1. So we have to return the ordering of the courses uh, so that we can finish all the courses. If there are many valid answers, any of them, return any of them. If it is impossible to find all courses, return an empty array. So in the course schedule part, what we need to find, this statement was same, but we need to return whether we can take all the courses or not. So here, if we can take all the courses, we need to return the order in which we can take that courses. Otherwise, if we can't take all the courses, we need to return an empty array. So I think this is similar to the course schedule one. Means this is also a variation of topological sort. where we need to return the topological sorting. Okay, so I think here also we can use the Khan's algorithm. Means using BFS we can solve it. So give a second. Khan's algorithm. So we can read out this article. Okay, I'm not able to paste this URL. Okay, topological sorting. See, taken. Okay, so I have pasted it into the chat section. So we can you can go through this article which we I have pasted in the chat link to learn about the topological sorting. So what we can how we can implement topological sorting is we have num courses. So and we have this prerequisite. So first we can form a graph, a directed graph using this prerequisite array. So that graph will have a vertex and list of vertices it connecting to its neighbors. So let's call it graph. So I have initialized a graph and we can iterate our prerequisites array and we can put this edge into our array into our map. So map dot graph dot compute if absent, and we can in the zeroth position we can put if nothing is present in zeroth position we will initialize a new array list. We will put a new array list and in that array list we will add the prerequisite of 1. Basically what we are doing is before taking course 0 we need to take the course 1. So we are adding in the neighbors of this course 0 the course 1. Okay, so in this way we have formed a directed acyclic graph. So we can also print our graph if we want to. So in Java, how we can print a graph? We can means how we can iterate a graph. Map dot entry. So our current entry means current pair in map will look like this. So we will put our map here. We will call it as current uh, entry or current key value pair, current pair, and graph dot entry set. So this is the syntax to iterate a map in Java. Now what we can do for this current pair means we can print system.out this current pair dot get key, this current pairs key, and against this key we can print the values, means its neighbors. Current pair dot get value. So this is how I think we can print a graph, print a map. At the end we need to return something, so for now let's return an empty array. We will see our graph for this array. Okay, for this array, for prerequisite array, we are getting a graph, means 1 having a neighbor 0, means before taking course 1 we need to take course 0. So before taking course 1 we need to take course 0. For this particular for this, for 2 we need to take course 0. Okay, so for taking 2 we need to take course 0, and for 3 we need to take course 1 and course 2 before taking course 3. So before taking course 3 we need course 1 and course 2. So we are storing correct values in our graph, in our graph. Okay, so we can comment it out. So now we need to find the first, we will find courses which don't depend on any course. So we can first pursue courses which don't depend on any other course. So how we can find it? So first we will define a array in degree, of size num courses. So what will this array store? This will store the number of courses on which ith course is dependent. For example, in our this test case, one is dependent on one course, two is dependent on two course, three is dependent on uh, two courses. But we can see there is no entry for zero, means zero is not dependent on any other course. So in degree for this zero will be zero, means in let's, this is in degree. So in degree means incoming edges. So incoming edges to zero are zero. So we can start from the course which has a zero in degree. So how we can calculate in degree? We will iterate our map. We will iterate our map, and in degree of this our key, our current pairs key will be equal to length of its value. So in degree of 1 will be length equal to this, means it is dependent on 1, which is 1. In degree of 2 will be also 1. In degree of 3 is also 2. So it is dependent on two courses. Basically we are taking values length. So get dot value and its length. So length will be calculated at size. So this will give us the in degree. So we can also print the in degree, that for int I equals to 0 and I smaller than num courses, and we can print system.out.println. We can print current index and its in degree. So its in degree will be in degree of ith value. So we can see for 0 we have in degree 0, for 1 we have in degree 1, for 2 we have in degree 1, and for 3 we have in degree 2. So we will take a queue first. So this is the implementation of Khan's algorithm for finding topological sorting. So first we will take a queue. In queue, we will store the elements having in degree 0 first. So this is our queue. This is how we define a queue in Java. So first we will iterate our in degree array and check if in degree of this ith value is 0. If in degree is 0, then we will add that to our queue. So we have added this vertex to our queue. So initially we will start from the courses which have in degree 0, meaning these courses are not dependent on any other courses. So we will start from that courses. We have added that courses to our queue. Okay, so we will one by one process values from our queue till our queue is not empty. Okay, and we can also define our answer array. So this is our answer output. So we can define our answer output, and it will be same size of this num courses. Okay, so we can define our answer along with this in degree array. So we have defined our answer, and at the end we will return our answer. So now we in our queue we have all the values with the in degree 0. So we will find the current value from our queue. So it will be queue.poll. So this current value will be processed very first. So this will be in our order of processing the courses. This will be the first course which we will be taking. So we need to put this course into our answer at the initial index, mean at the very first index, which is 0. So we can define a index which is 0. So what we need to do is in answer at this index position we need to put this current that we will take this course very first. So now we have taken this course, so we will now find all its neighbors, means the values which are present on this course, means which will be processed when this course is done. So now this course we have uh, completed this course, we will go for its neighbors. So in neighbor, in graph we are storing its neighbor, that will be graph dot get current. So for the neighbors, one course is completed. So for neighbor, we will decrease the in degree. Means from the perspective of neighbor, the neighbor is dependent on this answer. So for neighbor, one course, for the neighbor side, one course is done. So we can remove dependency of this course from the neighbor, and we can decrease the uh, in degree of the neighbor. So in degree of this neighbor, so we are subtracting in degree of this neighbor, and if this in degree of the neighbor becomes 0, that means all the courses on which this neighbor was dependent are now completed, so we can add this neighbor into our queue too. So we will add this neighbor to our queue, and we need to increment our index also. So this is how I think we can store all the values, means we can find the order in which we need to process the courses. But at the end we need to check one more thing, which is if we able to complete all courses, in that case our index will become num courses. If it doesn't become equal to the num courses, in that case that means we are not able to complete all the courses, means there is a cycle in our graph, so we can return -1. Otherwise we will return our answer. Okay, so it should be linked list, and here it should be in degree of neighbor. Okay, other than this we have to return an empty array here, not -1. So this will represent an empty array. Other than this, I think we don't have any compilation syntax error. Okay, so this is the case where our course is not dependent on any other course. So in that case, it will be not present in graph. So what we can use the default value as the empty array list. So what this will return, if the current is present in our graph, then it will return neighbor of the current. Otherwise, as a default value, it will return the empty array list. So in that case, we will not get this null pointer exception. So we are getting a null pointer exception for this course, for this type, for this test case. Okay. For this case, we are getting correct output. Okay. On zeroth index means we are falling into this condition for this particular case. So can we check what the index value we are getting? So here we are getting index value as the 1 only, and here also. Okay. Okay. So initially 0 will be in our queue for this particular case. Means for this case. Okay, so 0 is in our queue. So we will check if our queue is not empty. We will pop out 0, and at position 0 we will put 0, and we will now go for neighbors of 0. Okay, so okay, I think this means in this particular case 1 0 2 0 3 1 3 2. So our graph for this case is like 1 is dependent on 0, 2 is dependent on 0, 3 is dependent on 1 and 2. After we have completed zeroth course, our queue should contain 1 and 2. That 1 and 2 are dependent on 0, and now 0 is completed. Okay, so instead of storing 1 into 0, what we can do? We can make a graph like courses which are depend on 0. So on 0, course 1 and 2 are dependent, and on 1, course 3 is dependent, and on course 2, Also 3 is dependent, and none of the courses is dependent on the 3. Zero one means okay. So we can take this graph. This means number of nodes which are dependent on 0. Okay, so number of nodes are dependent on 0. So for calculating in degree, what we can do, we can iterate this prerequisite array, and how we can calculate in degree then. So our course will be this, and see course will be this, and it will be dependent on course 1. So it's dependent on course 1. So in degree for 0 means zeroth position. In degree for this course means course is dependent on 0 or 1 and 2. So for this course will be increased. Means what will our in degree will store for this graph? It will store that course on which one is dependent. So course on which one is dependent is 1, which is 0. So 1 is dependent on 0th course. And course, it will store the on which ith course is dependent. Okay, number of courses on which ith course is dependent. So 0th course will be dependent on nothing, and one course will be dependent on one value itself. So I think now we have corrected our approach in degree. Course cannot find single. Okay. So if we print our in degree, we can see that. So we have printed our n degree, which means zeroth course is dependent on zero course, 1th course is dependent on one course, which is zero, 2 is dependent on zero course, 3 is dependent on two courses. So 3 is dependent on one course and 3 is dependent on two courses. So now we are storing correct values. So I think we can submit this solution and it will work. Okay. So I think previous solution, which was in 22, I think same will be same. So it's the same solution, but I think we are doing something different here. List of list as graph. Okay, so the current approach is better than the previous. Okay, we will now solve the problem uh, graph value tree. Okay, we can move to this next problem, graph value tree. Okay, so this is not present on LeetCode, so we will solve it on this platform only. Okay, so the problem says given n nodes labeled from 0 to n minus 1 in a list of undirected edges. Okay, so undirected edges. So we are given undirected edges. So undirected edges means there will be edge from 0 to 1 and 1 to 0 also. Means edge having no direction. So that means undirected graph edge. Write a function to check whether these edges make up a valid tree. Okay. Okay. So we can have n number of nodes, so we can have 5 nodes. For For example, in this case, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5 nodes. So nodes will be from 0 to n minus 1. And we are given edges. And we need to return true if these edges form a tree. Otherwise, we need to return the false if these edges don't form a tree. Okay, so a tree means a node having children under it. So that means a tree. So we are not talking about a binary tree here. Here a node can have as many as childrens. So we need to check whether a graph is a tree or not. So we have undirected graph. So let me show you how a undirected graph images. So this is an example of undirected graph. Means the edge don't have any particular direction. So in directed graph, the edge has a particular direction. Means from this node we can only travel to zeroth node, but from this zeroth node we cannot travel back to one node. So this is a directed graph. So this means we can only travel in a given direction only. But in undirected graph we can travel from 1 to 2 and 2 to 1. Okay, so we are given the edge of the undirected graph. So these are the edges of undirected graph, meaning 0 1 means we can travel from 0 to 1 and 1 to 0 also. Okay, and we need to find whether this undirected graph having these edges forms a tree or not. So what is a condition for a tree? So condition for a, so this example, is not a tree because tree don't have a cycle like this. So all these graphs which we are seeing undirected graphs, so this undirected graph, so this undirected graph we can call it as a tree because it has branches which do not form any cycle. Okay, so basically we need to check whether this undirected graph forms a cycle or not. If this graph has a cycle, that means this is not a tree. Otherwise, if it doesn't have a cycle, it is a. No, I am not a student, brother. I am working as a backend developer in Bharti Airtel. So from where are you out of mind? ગુજરાત કેમ છો મજામાં? सो ब्रदर कौन से ईयर में हो आप? मतलब पढ़ रहे हो क्या अभी आप, या फिर वो कर रहे हो, नौकरी ढूंढ रहे हो, पढ़ाई पूरी कर ली? क्या सीन है अपना? डू यू अंडरस्टैंड हिंदी? अच्छा, पढ़ रहे हो? कौन से कॉलेज में हो? कौन से ईयर में हो? कौन सा कोर्स कर रहे हो? गणपति यूनिवर्सिटी। ओके, यही है। कैंपस तो बढ़िया है यार तुम्हारा। कितने एकड़ में है देखें? 300 एकड़ में है तुम्हारा कैंपस? बढ़िया है यार कैंपस तो तुम्हारा। यहाँ पे 272 लिखा है। गणपति इज अ प्राइवेट यूनिवर्सिटी इन खेरवा, यूजीसी। सही है कैंपस तो। अब काम की बात करें। प्लेसमेंट भी तकड़ी है तुम्हारी तो क्या दिक्कत हो गई भाई तुमको? मजामा है सब कुछ। ब्रांच कौन सी है तुम्हारी? हम्म। डिप्लोमा है आईटी से। अच्छा, तो यार कंफ्यूजन नहीं होना चाहिए तुम्हें। आफ्टर टेंथ? अच्छा, तुम आफ्टर टेंथ डिप्लोमा कर रहे हो? उसके बाद तुम बीटेक करोगे या फिर नहीं करोगे? मैं इतने एक अनडायरेक्टेड ग्राफ बना देता हूँ, तुम बताते रहो। ये दूसरी स्क्रीन है मेरी जिसमें मैं देख रहा हूँ। दिखाऊं दूसरी स्क्रीन? अच्छा, कंफ्यूजन बता दो क्या है, कंफ्यूजन लिख दो यार, फिर सॉर्ट आउट करते हैं। वैलिड। यार पाइथन तो इजी है, सबसे इजी तो पाइथन ही है यार। पाइथन तो प्योर इंग्लिश है भाई। पाइथन के लिए कुछ नहीं करना तुम्हें। पाइथन के लिए पता है क्या करना है? तुम्हें एक कोर्स पकड़ना है, 1-2 घंटे का, ठीक है? एक कोर्स बताऊं मैं तुम्हें पाइथन का? मतलब एक बंदा है, मेरे हिसाब से वो बढ़िया कोर्स कराएगा। पाइथन कोर्स बाय मोश, इस बंदे का मिल गया ना तो ये कराएगा भाई तेरे को। ये रहा, ये कर ले भाई। ये कर ले 5 घंटे का, 6 घंटे का। सफल है जिंदगी तेरी। कॉपी, ठीक है, पेस्ट कर देता हूँ इसको। पाइथन तो मेरे को भी आती है, कुछ नहीं है भाई, एक लैंग्वेज सीख ले बाकी सारी आ जाएंगी। 25%। हाय। सो वी आर मेकिंग अ undirected graph। भाई एआई है जो कुछ है वो आगे चल के, उसके अलावा कुछ नहीं है। तो तुम है ना फिर पाइथन भी मत, तुम्हें एआई सीखना है ना भाई तो तुम पाइथन, ठीक है, तुम पाइथन सीख लो एआई करके। उसके बाद एक मशीन लर्निंग का कोर्स है भाई, कोर्सेरा पे, ये देखो मैंने भी ये कर रखा है थोड़ा बहुत। यार ये मेरा बंद हो गया, कॉलेज की आईडी पे था ये मेरे। ये आई थिंक बंद हो गया मेरा एक्सेस इसका। हाँ ये रहा, इसमें मेरा, इसमें है कोर्सेरा पे है भाई ये, मशीन लर्निंग स्पेशलाइजेशन करके। जिस बंदे ने टेंसर फ्लो लाइब्रेरी बनाई है ना, उस बंदे का है ये कोर्स। एक सेकेंड, नाम बताता हूँ मैं, ये रहा, मशीन लर्निंग स्पेशलाइजेशन भाई। अगर ए फर्स्ट स्टेप है भाई तुम्हारा ये, अगर तुम्हें मशीन लर्निंग एआई सीखनी है तो पहले पाइथन का वो जो कोर्स मैंने पेस्ट किया है ना वो सीख लो। उसके बाद ये मशीन लर्निंग स्पेशलाइजेशन का ये कोर्स है। इस बंदे का है भाई, ये एंड्रयू एनजी का। ये रहा बंदा, इस बंदे ने टेंसर फ्लो बनाई है भाई। तो इसके 3 कोर्स हैं अपने, इस मशीन लर्निंग स्पेशलाइजेशन में इसके 3 कोर्स हैं। 3 कोर्स सीरीज है ये। एक है सुपरवाइज मशीन लर्निंग, एक है एडवांस्ड लर्निंग एल्गोरिदम, एक है अनसुपरवाइज लर्निंग। तो भाई तुम ये 3 कोर्स कर लो, ये बेस है भाई एआई का, मशीन लर्निंग का। इसके अलावा मेरे हिसाब से तुम तैयार हो जाओगे उसके बाद। इसमें से मैंने तो 2 ही करे भाई, फिर मैं कर नहीं पाया। ये तीसरा रहता है मेरा। और ये वैसे मांगते हैं पैसे। अगर तुम्हें फ्री में करना है ना तो यहाँ पे एक ऑप्शन होता है भाई, वो करके क्या बोलते हैं कि फाइनेंशियल एड करके। तो उसमें तुम्हें ये पूछेंगे जैसे कि, यार अभी तो मैंने वो अप्लाई, मैंने भी वैसे ही किए हैं, ये फ्री में ही किए हैं। तो इसमें मैं वो देख रहा हूँ ऑप्शन कहाँ पे है। उसमें अपन फ्री में कर सकते हैं ये कोर्सेज, 15-20 दिन, मतलब 20 दिन लगेंगे। अपने से ये पूछेंगे, ये रहा फाइनेंशियल एड अवेलेबल। सो इस पे क्लिक करना है अपने को, और ये कंटिन्यू एप्लीकेशन करके 15-20 दिन में इसमें एप्लीकेशन में पूछेगा कि तुम्हें क्यों चाहिए ये कोर्स। तो तुम फिर इस पे एप्लीकेशन में कुछ भी लिख के जीपीटी से बनवा के इसको कर दो अप्लाई कोर्स को। फिर ये कोर्स तुमको मिल जाएगा 15 दिन में। मतलब 3 कोर्सेज हैं तो तीनों के लिए अलग अलग एप्लीकेशन देनी पड़ेगी। हाँ, फ्री हो जाएगा फिर ये। मैंने भी कर रखा है भाई, देखो दिखाता हूँ मैं। मैंने 2 कर रखे हैं इसमें से। लिंक्डइन पे दिखाता हूँ मैंने डाले हुए हैं। ये रे भाई, एडवांस लर्निंग एल्गोरिदम और सुपरवाइज मशीन लर्निंग एल्गोरिदम। तो ये 2 कर लिए मैंने 3 में से। तीसरा का टाइम नहीं लगा भाई। ये वाला नहीं किया मैंने, अनसुपरवाइज लर्निंग वाला। इसको छोड़ के 2 कर लिए मैंने। तो मेरे को सही लगे भाई इसमें। और इजी है भाई, बिल्कुल इजी लगेगा ये करवाएगा तब। तो यहाँ से हो जाएगी भाई मशीन लर्निंग की प्रिपरेशन तो। मिलेगा ही भाई, ये मिला या नहीं मिलेगा ही। ये 15 दिन बाद ओपन करोगे ना इसको, तो ये ओपन हो जाएगा कोर्सेज। फिर सारे व्यू सारे देख पाओगे तुम। जैसे इस पर्टिकुलर कोर्स का है ना, अ, मैं सारे वीक देख पाऊंगा। इसमें 3 वीक है, तो तीनों वीक देख पा रहा हूँ मैं। अगर तुमको नहीं मिला होगा तो तुमको एक ही वीक दिखेगा इसमें, अदरवाइज तुमको सारे वीक दिखेंगे। मेरे को देखो सारे वीक वो दिख रहे हैं। मतलब बिल्कुल इजी है यार। ये देखो 8-8 मिनट की, 2-2 मिनट की वीडियोस हैं। वीक तो लगेगा भी नहीं, एक दिन में कर सकते हो एक वीक का कंटेंट। फिर सारा आइडिया हो जाएगा भाई। और कहीं भी यूट्यूब पे कहीं भी सर्च मारोगे तो यही रिकमेंड करेंगे। इसी बंदे का कोर्स ही रिकमेंड करेंगे एआई के लिए तो। इसके बाद फिर ये सीख के अपना किसी यूट्यूब पे प्रोजेक्ट वगैरह बना लेना। तो बहुत सारे यूट्यूबर हैं जो जिन्होंने वीडियो डाल रखी है, तो उनका प्रोजेक्ट देख के उसका प्रोजेक्ट बना लेना। मेरा तो भाई देखो 2023 में लिया हुआ है, अभी तक कंप्लीट नहीं किया है मैंने लास्ट वाला। ठीक है, तो हम इस क्वेश्चन पे थे। हमें ये बताना था कि जो हमारा ग्राफ है, एक अनडायरेक्टेड एजेस दे रखे हैं हमको, और हमको ये बताना है कि हमारा जो ये जो एजेस हैं ये एक ट्री बनाते हैं या नहीं। सो ट्री के लिए कंडीशन यही है कि उसमें कोई साइकिल नहीं होगी। सो पहले हमने अपना ये बना लिया, सर्टिफिकेशन कोर्स फॉर फुल स्टैक एंड व्हाट स्किल्स आर रिक्वायर्ड टू ग्रैब इंटर्नशिप। ओके, सर्टिफिकेशन कोर्स फुल स्टैक के लिए तो यार तुम वो कर लो फिर। इस पे अपना यूडेमी पे है ना, इसका मर्न का है, एंजिला ह्यू का। एंजिला ह्यू का है मर्न का। तो वो वाला कर लो, फुल स्टैक का ही है वो बेस्ट है मेरे अकॉर्डिंग तो। और उसमें सर्टिफिकेशन भी मिल जाएगा, 400-500 रुपये का पड़ेगा वो तुमको। यूडेमी पे है। यार ओल्ड क्या होगा, ओल्ड कुछ नहीं होता यार। वो अपडेट करते रहते हैं यूडेमी वाले अपना कोर्स। तो उसमें जो रिएक्ट मिलेगी वो फंक्शनल प्रोग्रामिंग के साथ मिलेगी, ना कि क्लासेस के साथ। मतलब लेटेस्ट वो अपडेट करते रहते हैं यूडेमी वाले। इसमें है ना यार, एंजिला एंजिला यू का, डॉक्टर एंजिला यू। तो इसका ये देख लो यार, बूट कैंप। अब इसमें 4.5 लाख लोगों ने 4.7 रेटिंग दिया है। काफ़ी अच्छा ही है मेरे अकॉर्डिंग। Web3 भी बता रही है, पोस्ट ग्रेस भी बता रही है। या फिर अगर तुम्हारे पास ये मैकबुक है तो भाई तुम फिर iOS का भी कर लो। इसका iOS का, इसी का है iOS का भी, बेस्ट है वो भी। यूडेमी सही है इसके लिए तो, फुल स्टैक के लिए तो। कोई सर्टिफिकेशन लेना है तो हाँ तुम यार, स्किल यही है कि तुम डेवलपमेंट पे ज़्यादा फोकस करो इंटर्नशिप के लिए। अगर तुम्हारे कॉलेज में कंपनीज आती हैं तो तुम्हें डीएसए पे करना चाहिए, अदरवाइज तुम्हें कॉलेज के बाहर लेनी है तो फिर तुम्हें वो करना पड़ेगा। कॉलेज के बाहर लेनी है तो डेवलपमेंट, अगर कॉलेज में आती है तो डीएसए। और डीएसए थोड़ा बहुत आना ही चाहिए यार, बेसिक जो भी अपने अप्रोचेज है ना, ये जो मैं लिस्ट कर रहा हूँ, ये वाली लिस्ट तो एक बार कर ही लेना। ठीक है भाई। सो वी हैव फॉर्म्ड अवर ग्राफ and now we need to check if our this graph consists of cycles or not. So we can make a array visited of size n. Okay, so visited array, we will we will consider that our graph is disconnected, so we will call the function which will check whether our graph contains cycle or not for every node which is not visited. So we will call a DFS function which will check if our graph contains a cycle or not. So what we will use, for example, if we have a graph which have a cycle, for example, 1 visited 2, 2 visits 3, and 3 visits 1 again, then what we can do, we can suppose make a stack or some data structure which can store the visited values till now. So we will put 1 into our that visited data structure, then we will put 2 into our visited data structure, then we will put 3 into that our visited data structure. Then we check, before putting any value we will check if that value we have already have that value in our uh, data structure or not. So here one will be already in our data structure, so we can say that we have uh, stuck inside a cycle. So we also need to maintain this path. So how we can maintain this path? So let's first call this I value, this will be our source. Let's pass the graph. Then we can take a boolean array. In this boolean array of size n, we will store this path. When we have visited 1, we will mark 1 as the visited. When we have visited 2, we will mark 2 as visited. When we have visited 3, we will mark 3 as visited. And before marking visited, we will check if it is already visited. If it's already visited, for example, in this case, for 1, it will be already visited. We can say that it contains a cycle. And we will also maintain this our global visited array. Okay, so we will call this visited function, and this will check if our graph contains a cycle. So let's have this will return a boolean variable, cycle found. So if we have found cycle, I am a backend developer, bro. I code in Golang in my company. Golang. So Golang is a language by Google. We also call it Go. Cycle found. Then we can return false. That otherwise, if no cycle found, we can return true that this is a tree. Package. पैकेज यूट्यूबर्स की तरह बताऊं क्या? जैसे यूट्यूबर्स बताते हैं कि एक महीने में मैं इतना ले सकता हूँ, एक महीने में मैं वो ले सकता हूँ. नहीं ब्रो, ऐसे नहीं बता सकते. यूट्यूबर्स की तरह ही बता सकते हैं. वो मेरा मैनेजर स्ट्रीम देख रहा हो तो so now we need to implement this DFS function which will detect if our इतना कि बस एक प्रो मॉडल आ जाए हर महीने. पब्लिक boolean DFS. So this will be our source and this will be our graph and this will be our path. We need to take it as a boolean, visited array as the boolean. So we have our current path, so what we can call boolean current path, and this will be visited array. So if this source variable is present in our current path already, means from 1 if we go to 2, from 3 we can go to 3, then from 3 we can go to 1, means if this one is already present in our this path, then we can say there is a cycle. So if our current path dot source is true, or we can say if this is true, we can return true. This means our graph contains a cycle. So if our graph contains a cycle, that means it is not a tree. And if our this node is already visited, that means we have already visited it and we haven't found any cycle yet. So we can if we could have found any cycle, then we could have returned true already. So this means we have already visited it and it doesn't have any cycle, so we are returning false. Otherwise we will we will iterate our source neighbors. So int neighbor graph.get. So we need this list of neighbors. Graph.get source. So this will give us neighbors of the source. Okay. Suppose if we don't have source in our graph also, so in that case we can return a empty array. So this means as a default value, in the case a source is not present on our graph, we are returning the empty array so that this doesn't give us a null pointer exception. Okay. So we will visit our neighbor if it is not already visited. Okay. Okay, so if it's one thing we are missing here is if our current it's not present in our current path, we will need to add it in our current path. And if it's not already visited, we need to mark it as visited. And as our in our graph is undirected, so for this edge what we will be having, we will be having this represents a edge between 0 and 1 also into 1 and 0. So we don't fall into this cycle. From 0 we visit 1, and then from 1 we visit 0, from 0 we again visit 1. To avoid this cycle, we will check if our okay, we can fall into this cycle. How should how can we avoid this cycle? Okay, so our for example here our source is 0 and 0 has neighbors 1. So how we can avoid, so we are at 0, we're at 1. Okay, how can we avoid going to 0? So this is our source, this is our neighbor, and this will be our parent. So we also need a parent variable. So this means our neighbor should not be equal to our parent. Means suppose our source is 1 and its neighbor is 0 and its parent should not be equal to this itself. And then we can call DFS. So we can pass neighbor and parent of this neighbor. We are passing this neighbor and parent of this neighbor will be now source. We are passing graph, current path, and this visited array. And at the end, after iterating all the neighbors, means after traversing this path, we need to backtrack. We need to remove these variables from our current path. So we need to unmark our source. Okay, so if our this DFS uh, returns as true, that means we have found a cycle. So we can use this similar condition. So this will break the call here itself. It will return a false. Means if cycle found, okay, so if cycle found, we need to return true here. That cycle is found. And if a cycle is found for in this main function, we are returning false because this means it is not a valid tree. Okay, so I think that is it for this question. Math, integer, list of integer graph, hash map, adding the edges, edge 0 to 1, 1 to 0, a visited array for disconnected graph, if not visited. Okay, so what we haven't got any definition for valid tree here. So we can run this first. Okay, we have compilation error, missing return statement. Okay, at the end, we need to return false that we have not found a cycle. Okay, these two test cases are passing, but I'm thinking whether a disconnected graph should be considered as a tree or not. So I think this will fail where we have a disconnected graph because we are iterating whole disconnected graph. So let's try to submit this. Okay, we are getting wrong answer. So 0 to 1 and 2 to 3. So this is a disconnected graph. So what does a disconnected graph means? We have these nodes. So 0 transverses to 1 and 2 transverses to 3. So we have these two separate graphs. Means these graphs are not a single graph. That means these are more than one graph. So that is called a disconnected graph, that we don't have a single connected graph. So for this what we can do, we can start our DFS from 0 only, and if it's a connected graph, then after calling this DFS, our all the nodes should be visited. Means this array does not have any false value. So if it have any false value, we can return false. Okay, let's use this test case and run. Okay, so now this test case is passing. It is returning false now. Okay, so we have a successful submission. Hi Sam. Bro, to be pro at coding, I think we should do more and more questions. We should attempt contests regularly, which I am not doing, and hopefully you will be not doing too, because that's why you are asking this question. So we are on the same boat. Okay, so we have solved this problem also. Valid graph. So now we can solve this problem. So this is a premium problem. We have to solve it on this platform itself. So the problem says number of connected components in an undirected graph. So that means there is a undirected graph with n nodes. There is also an edge array where edge means this. A B means there is edge between A and B in the graph. The nodes are numbered from 0 to n minus 1. Return the total number of connected components in the graph. Playlist like playlist regarding solving problems. Tutorial. Okay. So I think tutorial should include the basics of a programming language. Means we at least should know the basic of a programming language in order to do DSA. So we can do a tutorial of Java. Means 2 hour of video. I think I can drop, in which I can only explain means concepts of Java, where which can be used to solve DSA problems. Means I think there are limited concepts which I use to solve data structure problems. I myself don't know advanced Java, but I know Java that uh, it can be used to solve any DSA problem. I myself don't code in Java in my uh, job profile. I am a Golang developer. but from college I'm doing DSA in Java, so that's why I'm continuing. Okay, so we will solve now a number of connected components in a undirected graph. So basically we need to, I think we can solve it using the previous code itself. Okay, understood. Okay, so to form a application like e-commerce, you need to know about maps, arrays and maps, and what we can say, and some concept of object orientation. I think that will be enough. You don't need to know graph or linked list to build application or trees even. You just need to know how maps work and how arrays work. Other than that, uh, how we can use functions, how we can reuse functions and inbuilt functions of a language. So that will be enough, I think. So to find the connected component, we can use the previous code itself, I think. So what we were doing previously, we were forming a map and we were maintaining this visited array. So I will copy only this part. The second number of, okay, so what we have done here is we have so can you guess from where I am? From my accent. Map, we have a map graph, and in that graph we are storing these edges, means we are making a undirected graph. Yes, I'm from India. From where are you? I thought you are from India. Okay, so you are from Bangladesh. I, okay. Yes, I'm from India. Okay, so we can make this visited array. This problem is same like the number of islands. So number of island will be a prerequisite to it. So what we will do, we will mark, we will visit every component. So let's have a count. So this count will store a number of components, and at the end we will return these number of components. So we will call the DFS on our graph. If our these see, so the number of the times we need to call a DFS will be equal to the number of the components in our graph. So for example, we have a graph where this n is 3 and we have edges like 0, 1 and 2, 3. So in this case, 2 will form an edge with 1, 0 will form edge with a 1 and 2 will form edge with 3. So this means there is no edge between this particular part of graph and this particular part of graph. So they are particularly different graphs. So this means we have two different components. So running DFS for this component will mark this whole component visited, and after that we will run DFS for this, and this will mark this component as fully visited. So the number of, so here we need to run the DFS two times to mark the full graph. So that is why our answer here will be 2. So it will be equal to the number of the times we have to call the DFS. So if our current node is not visited, ith node, so we will call our DFS on this ith node, and we will mark all the nodes in this particular part of the graph. It may be possible that the graph is connected and this DFS runs only one time. So this means this will only have one connected component. So we will increment the count every time we call our DFS. So we will call DFS on this graph, and we will pass our visited array. So let's implement this public void DFS int source, and this graph we need to take and we need to pass this visited array boolean of boolean type. Explain the problem what they ask. Which problem, bro? If visited of our this source is true, in that case we will return. Otherwise, we will mark our source as visited, and we will call DFS for its neighbors then. We'll call DFS for its neighbor, pass the graph and visited array. Okay, so we have called the DFS. I think this will work. Okay, we have got a compilation error. We forgot to put a semicolon. Okay, so these our test cases are passing. Okay, we have submitted this problem. So I think we, okay, so today we have solved these three problems. So yesterday we will close this particular section graphs. Tomorrow we will complete this part. Okay, so I think That okay. So I have used DFS basically. How I use the DFS? So let me explain the question first. So the question was saying we have given a edges and we need to find total number of connected components. Let's take two examples. First example is we have suppose we have given these edges 0 1 means there is edge between 0 to 1, 1 2 there is edge between 1 to 2, and then we have 3 0. So how will our graph will look like? Our graph will look like 0 connected to 1, this undirected edge, and 1 connected to 2, and 3 connected to 0. So I can connect 3 this side. So this represents a connected graph. Connected graph means from all these edges I have a single graph. Means if I start DFS from this part or any other part, I can transverse this whole graph. So this means it has connect one connected components. This graph itself a connected component. And suppose if we remove this link, we remove edge between 0 and 1. If we remove this part, then we will be left with two graphs. So this means we have two connected graphs. So here to mark all the nodes visited, we have to run our DFS two times. Suppose first we start from this 3 and mark all the components of this graph as true. So we have marked so we are starting our loop from 0 to n. So first we will call 0. We will start DFS from 0 and we will mark this whole graph as visited. So we have marked 0. So visited in visited array we have marked 0 and 3 as visited. So now we will increment I, it will become 1. So for 1 we will mark 1 and 2 as uh, visited again. So initially we have incremented count 1. Now we will again increment count, and 1 and 2 also become visited. So count becomes 2, and now none of the elements becomes unvisited. So at the end we will return our count 2. So that's how this is working. So I think that is it for today. Okay, thank you guys, and please do like this stream. See you tomorrow.